So now let's start the webinar with the agenda for the day. First, we'll see the introduction to OpUtils and the various usages of the product in real-time scenarios, and then we'll see in depth about OpUtils with various features and options which are available within OpUtils, followed by IP address management, and then Switchboard Mapper, rogue device detection, networking tools, scheduling and notification, and finally the reporting capability of OpUtils as a network monitoring tool in your environment. So now let's see what is OpUtils and the introduction to OpUtils and how this is going to help us in real time to manage our network devices or our resources which are available in our environment, such as IPs and ports, with various features and options to have a better resource planning and a capacity management. So what is OpUtils? So you'll be wondering what OpUtils as a software is going to help us in achieving our day-to-day real-time needs when it comes to a system or a network administrator. So as we could see, an OpUtils is an IP address and a switchboard management software that is geared towards helping engineers efficiently monitor, diagnose, and troubleshoot IT resources. The integrated IPAM and SPM allows you to secure your network from rogue intrusion. The application comprises of 20 plus tools that helps you to keep a check on bandwidth usage, monitoring availability of critical devices, backing up Cisco configuration files, and more. So the prerequisite, so you want to install OpUtils in your environment. So what are the prerequisites which are required for installing the product in the real-time scenario? So to install Op Manager in your environment, you'd be requiring the following prerequisites, starting with a physical or a virtual server. OpUtils supports two databases. The inbuilt database which comes with the product is called as Postgres or PGSQL, and also we support MS SQL as a database. And you'd be requiring a minimum of 8 GB of RAM with 40 GB of hard disk. As of now, OpUtils can be installed on a Windows or a Linux-based platform. For more details on the prerequisites and the hardware and software requirements, you can visit the link which is given at the bottom of the presentation slide. So now let's start the first topic which is there in the OpUtils. The first feature which is available in OpUtils, which is called as IP address management. So when we talk about IP address management in real time, where system or network administrators would be maintaining a huge spreadsheet in which they'll be having all their IPs which are there in their environment or subnets in a listed format, along with other information such as which device is using it, if the IP is free or not, and if there are multiple system or network administrators, it will be a shared document where they had to go through the entire document if they need to assign a brand new IP address to a new device which is coming inside their network. So this becomes an hectic job for the network or the sysadministrators when there are multiple people and the environment is pretty huge. So in this scenario, OpUtils is going to help you achieve this requirement and the management in a much easier way. So OpUtils helps you add your subnets, scan all your IPs in your environment in an automated fashion, and get all the details in real time. For example, if a particular IP is assigned to a device, it's going to show you the MAC connected IP and the connected device details along with the port in which it's connected. And then this scanning will happen in an automated fashion, and it will also update the information in real time. If an IP moves from an available state to a free state or from a free state to an available state, it's going to update itself and show the real-time inventory information about your environment in a much clear and a detailed manner. And also you would be able to get notifications whenever a change happens or you can take necessary reports for your audit and all other purposes which are there in your environment to have a better detailed inventory monitoring about your IPs in your environment. And likewise, IP address management as a network monitoring tool feature is going to give you a better resource planning and a capacity management, which helps you have your environment in a much more secured and a detailed manner so that you know what is happening in your environment and how better you can use your resources to the fullest. So now let's see in detail about the various options and features which are available under IP address management. The first thing which we have to do with the IP address management or any software is that we have to add or discover the resources or the devices to the software so that we will be able to monitor them and get updated information in a pretty regular manner or in a real-time fashion. So in OpUtils, we do have three different methods of discovering the IPs into the OpUtils, starting with you can add your subnets individually. You can import your IP addresses using a CSV file, or you can use your DHCP to scan your entire network and get the detailed scope information of all the subnets and IPs which are available in your environment in a detailed fashion. So now let me take you to the product directly and show you how and what are the various options with the discovery module in IPAM, or otherwise called as IP address management. So when we log into the OpUtils, the first page what you see is called as the dashboard, which is going to give you the pictorial representation of all the collected data within the OpUtils, starting from the total number of IPs, the ports, the usage statistics, and all the other informations will be pretty much clearly available in a pictorial format or a graphical format in the dashboard for your reference to have a much easier understanding about your network. So when we go to the IP address manager, as we have discussed, we have various options to add and discover our subnets into our environment. So when we see the various options which are available in terms of discovery under IPAM, the first option, as we have discussed, we can add the subnets individually. So here all you have to do is you have to enter your IP address, then choose the respective net marks, give a name for your subnet, and if needed, you can give your VLAN and location as well, and then you could have your own custom groups for better understanding, or you can create your own group so that the subnet will be there in that respective custom group. If you're a bigger organization, you can have multiple groups, which helps you put the subnets in specific groups, which are going to help you understand which subnet or which IP is in which particular location or group, so that you'll be able to have them in a much better way in terms of reporting and monitoring of these IP. And also the second option which is available under the IPAM for discovery is using a CSV file input. So all you have to do is, let me show you an example of the CSV file, which is going to give you an understanding on how the CSV file has to be created. As you can see over here, in the CSV file, we will be having multiple columns, which gives you various information about the hierarchy of the subnet address, the net mask, the scanning option, how often it should happen, the subnet name, the location, description, VLAN, and the scan schedules, and etc. You can fill in this sheet and put all your subnet details in a clear manner, and then use this subnet to discover the details of the IPs and subnets inside the IPAM much easier. So instead of putting in subnets one by one or putting them on bulk, if you have your CSV file ready, you can directly import that into the OpUtils and get all your subnets with respect to the IPs which are there in your environment, and get a detailed statistics about how things are actually happening and used in your environment in a much clearer way. And also, as I have discussed and informed, if you have any queries with the topics which we are discussing, please do raise it in the chat channel so that our experts can answer your questions. So now we are moving into the features which are available within IP address management. The first option, we can monitor the status of the IP address in detail. So when we talk about monitoring the status, we have three predefined status which are available within the IPAM, which is called as available, transient, and used. So available and used is pretty much understandable by its name itself. The transient is nothing but an IP which got or which cleared from an usage statistics to a free state. So this transient state is a buffer period for that particular IP address. For example, a device was there in your environment and it has been deleted or removed, and that IP address is free. So this IP address will be in a transient or a buffer state for the next few days. So this time period is called as the transient state of that IP address, and you can have a custom timeline for this transient period. You could have it for 10 days or 5 days, and then automatically the product will swap it from a transient state to a free state. So these are the three various statuses of the IP addresses which are available within IPAM, which is going to help you understand the user statistics of that particular IP address. The second feature which is available is called as to identify the connected devices, followed by you can create your own group or tree view. You can add and view the DNS and the MAC details of the respective IPs and subnets, and also you can maintain the history of the IP addresses, how it was used, when it was used by which device, and when, and how the swap has happened. And finally, you can have a manual or a periodic scan for these subnets to get real-time information about your network based on the IP addresses. So now let's go to the utils directly to see the various other options which are available in terms of once the subnet or the IP addresses are discovered. So the first page which you see under IP address manager is nothing but a summary. So summary is going to give you a pictorial representation of the overall data which has been collected based on the subnet scans and the IPs availability. So as you can see, in my local setup, I do have 7,000 IPs which I am monitoring, out of which 1.3 percentage are used. And also I'll be able to get other information such as if my reverse NS lookup or my forward NS lookup is working or not, if there is any IP mismatch, and also the usage, the availability statistics, how many IPs are available, how many IPs are in a transient state. Likewise, I could also see the DNS status, whether if it's successful or the lookup is failing, and every other information as well. So now we are going to go back in the summary tab to see various other informations. And over here in the subnet details tab, you would be able to see all the subnet based information starting from the subnet address with the net mask along with the name which is customizable, then the size of the overall subnet and the usage statistics of this particular subnet in your environment, and then the last scan status, whether it was a success or a failure, the total number of available used and transient IPs in this particular subnet, and along with the last scan time, you can edit them, you can scan them, and you can have a custom column as well, so that you would be able to put in the respective information in a much clearer way. And when we talk about the IP details, for example, what more informations can I get in terms of IP addresses from the subnets directly? So in those informations or the data which the product is going to show you is as follows. So when we add a subnet and scan them regularly, we would be able to get all these vital information which is going to be critical when it comes to our network management and the usage statistics about our environment. So as a network administrator or a sysadmin, I'll be required to know which IP is assigned to which device, what's the MAC address of that particular device, how it's connected, from which particular port, from which switch, what's the availability statistics, and all that information can be seen in a tabular format for the device directly using the IP address management under the IP details tab. So as you can see, you have multiple columns which is going to give you various vital informations about the device, and which helps us understand what is the statistics or status of this particular IP in the subnet, and then we could take necessary actions accordingly. For example, if I take this particular IP in my subnet, I could see these various information starting from what is the IP address, what's the DNS name, whether the user statistic, whether it's available, free, and all other vital or critical information about this particular IP address in my subnet or in my environment, to know more about how things are working and have a better understanding about this particular IP in my environment. And likewise, the alarm tab and the history tab is going to give me the detailed information about what is happening in this particular IP address in my subnet. So now we're going to see the various other informations which are available in terms of IP address manager when we add them together. So as we have already seen, once you add your subnet, you'll be able to see the IP address, the connected device details such as MAC and DNS, and also the connected switch, and you'll be able to have custom columns in them. So under the IP details tab, if you want to select or change the status of a specific IP address from a use to a free or a free to a transient state, you could very well do them. All you have to do is you have to select the respective IPs, and then under actions, all you have to do is you have to select them and mark them whether you want to change the status if it's trusted or guest or available or transient. You can just swap them, and once you have saved it, the status of that particular IP address will automatically swap and will go into the selected status. In likewise, if you want to import your IP addresses, you can click on import IP address details using a CSV file. You can add custom columns, you can change the status of them. For example, if I want to view all my used IP addresses, all I have to do is click on the filter and view all my used IP addresses in a much clear fashion, so that I'll understand which IPs are used with what particular information. If I want to export them as a CSV, I could do it. For instance, I want to search for a specific set of IP or MAC address. I know a particular MAC address or a device is there in my environment, but I'm not sure to which IP it has been assigned or to which switch it's connected. So in those scenarios, all you have to do is enter the IP address or the MAC address of that particular device, and you'll be able to search for them and get all the information in a much detailed and a clear fashion. The IP history tab, which is under the IPAM, is going to give you the statistics about the usage or the how the IPs are swapped from one place to another in real time. For example, when we have guest devices in our environment, it comes in for a few days and goes out, and an IP has been assigned to it, and then it comes and it goes to a free state. So all these information regarding an IP usage, when it was used by which particular device at what time, and when the swap has happened, how long the IP was used by that device, and all such informations can be gathered and viewed using the IP history tab. And likewise, in terms of alerts, the alert tab is going to give you all the alarms and the information about the IP addresses which are there, whether the forward lookup, the NS lookup has been successful or not, whether the swap has happened, whether the interface went down, or the user statistics of a particular subnet go on beyond a particular timeline. So all these informations can be gathered and viewed in terms of IP addresses. And as we have discussed, we can have a custom schedule period for these subnets and scan them in a regular fashion. So you can have custom groups and scan them in a regular period and get more details about your subnet in real time. You can put a scan to run every day, hourly, or daily, or monthly, and get the real time information in a much clearer fashion. So now let's go back to the presentation and continue. So the next topic which we are going to see is about the DHCP server and the methods in which we could discover them and various information which are available once we add our DHCP server. So in OpUtils, you can add your Palo Alto firewall as a DHCP server, and ICC DHCP server, Fortinet firewall DHCP servers can be added. All you need is a domain admin credential and the IP address of your DHCP server. And once you have them, you can add that to the product and get the real-time information about your DHCP server and the IP addresses or the scope details of this particular DHCP in your environment. And you can scan your DHCP servers in a regular scheduled time intervals, and you can get all the details about your DHCP in depth and get more informations accordingly. So now let me show you in the product of the various informations which are available in terms of DHCP server when we add them into the product. So as soon as in the discovery module, so all you have to do is you have to click on IP address manager, and then under the add icon on your top right hand side, you have to click on add DHCP server. So when you click on the add DHCP server, as you can see, you can add the following DHCP servers so that we support these type and vendors of the DHCP server, starting from Microsoft, Palo Alto, Linux-based DHCP servers, Cisco routers, or Fortinet firewall as a DHCP server which is there in your environment, and add them in. And as we have discussed, the prerequisite is that you should be having a domain admin credential so that we can add the DHCP server and scan them in a regular fashion to get more information about your DHCP. So as soon as you add your DHCP server, it's going to give us the complete scope information about this particular IP range or your environment in a much detailed fashion, like what are the total number of IPs which are available, reserved, leased IPs, and everything, the complete scope information about your IP addresses and subnets in your environment in a much detailed fashion. And this is going to help us understand which MAC address has been assigned to a specific device or how it's connected, what's the DNS name, what's the lease period of one particular IP address or a device in your environment. So this feature, the additional feature of adding your DHCP server to the OpUtils, is going to give you a better leverage of understanding your environment in a much detailed fashion and get your real-time information without any problems or mismatches, and you'll have your exact scope of IPs which are there in your environment instead of having the entire IP range in your subnet, and then which is going to give you a real-time information and understanding about your network. So now let's go back to the presentation and continue. So the next topic which we are going to see is about Switchboard Mapper. So Switchboard Mapper, a feature in OpUtils, is going to help you understand the port usage which is there in your environment. For example, in larger environments or in hospital environments or customers, we would be having multiple routers and switches in various branches and locations where each device or IP address will be connected to specific set of switches in specific ports. So in managing these information will be a little critical or difficult for the system or network administrators in real time. So instead of updating these informations in a spreadsheet and re-updating them whenever there is a change which is happening, SPM, the Switchboard Mapper, as a network monitoring software, is going to help you in a much better way. For example, all you have to do is you have to add your switch to your SPM, and once you have done that, the product is going to scan the switch in a regular fashion using the SNMP credential which you're going to provide. And once the scan happens, it's going to get all the information about the port usage. So how many ports are used, how many ports are available, what devices are connected to that port, what MAC address, and how the usage or the connectivity of a particular device is there. All these informations will be available in terms of ports in your switches in your environment. By the usage of SPM feature, it's going to give you more detailed statistics about the ports and how the devices are connected to your environment through which particular port via which switch. So in terms of discovery options in SPM, we have the following options. You can add your switch individually one by one, or you can use a CSV file to import the switches on bulk, or you can use a bulk network discovery option to add all your switches in your environment in a much clear fashion. So now let me take you to the product and show you the various discovery options which are available in real time in terms of switchboard mapper. So when we click on add switch, we'll be able to see that we can add our switches individually. All you need is an SNMP credential. It could be V1, V2, or V3, and then you have to put in your switch's DNS name or IP address, and then you can add your switch in a much easier way. And you can also import your switches using a CSV file as well. So let me show you a sample CSV file for the SPM. So as you can see here, you have to give your group hierarchy, the switch name, the task name, the subnet, and the net mask. And once you have your CSV file ready, you'll be able to easily import this CSV file into the switchboard mapper and add the devices in a much easier fashion and much quicker way, so that you'll add your switches and scan them at regular polling intervals as well. So when we talk about a bulk discovery option, we can do a network scan. So all you have to do is you have to give a start and an end IP range and choose the respective credentials. Once you do that, the product will scan that particular IP range or the provided range and pick up all the network switches which are available within them, and give you more information about what is happening in those switches and the port usage about these switches which are there available in your environment. So now let's go back to the presentation and continue and see the various options and features which are available under Switchboard Mapper. So the first feature, we would be able to get the detailed statistics about the port availability. You can have a port view of the switch. You can get the connected and VLAN details about your switch and the devices. You can create your own group and preview. You would be able to administratively enable or disable the ports from the OpUtils itself, and you could get a detailed port status history, and you'll be able to get detailed information about your port usage in a pictorial and a graphical format, and you can also export them in an report so that you could use it for your reference. So now let me take you to the product directly and show you what are the various options which are available, and the features and the data which is going to be displayed once you add your switch to SPM. So starting with the summary tab. So the summary tab is going to give you the pictorial representation and overall overview of the switches which you have already discovered. So as you can see, I have added 3 of my switches, and a total of 59 ports are there in my switches, and 22 out of them are used and 37 are free. So the overall port usage is around 37%, as you can see on the screen. And likewise, in the switch tab, when I enter a particular switch, I'll be able to see what is happening with this particular switch. So as you can see in this switch summary tab, I'll be able to see a graphical information about what's the total used ports, the available ports, what are the total number of ports, what's the vendor, what's the last scan time, how long the scan has happened, how long was the system up, sysub time is available in terms of port view. So you'll be able to see all the ports and the designated information about this particular port which is there in my environment or which I've added. So likewise, when I go to the switch summary itself, when I take a different port which has a different switch which has a larger number of ports, I'll be able to get more information. So over here, as you can see, I do have this Cisco switch, sorry, an HP switch which has 41 ports, and the last scan time is also available. In the port view tab, you can see various information which are business critical for our environment, and also for in terms of network administrators managing their switches and ports. So here in the port tab, we are able to see the if index, F name, the port number, the usage statistic, the status of that particular port, the connected MAC, the IP addresses, where to which VLAN is connected, what's the speed of it, and also the change request, when the last change has happened. And also we can add custom columns to the switchboard mapper, as we are able to do it in IPAM, and we'll be able to have our own custom informations within the product and view them accordingly. And over here, if you want to change the status of one particular port or a port on bulk, it's pretty easy. So as you can see, this port is in a down state, or this port is in an available state. So I want to change the status of these ports administratively from the SPM itself. For that, all you have to do is you have to select them, and under actions, you can choose the respective uh, action which you want to do. For example, you can administratively disable this interface of port, you can enable them, you can modify the FLARs, you can unmanage the port, or you can manage the port. So these actions are performed based on the SNMP credential which you're providing with read-write credentials. So once you disable or enable the port from SPM, it will automatically reflect in the end device in real time, so that you don't need to log into the switch directly using a putty or any other tool and then manually type in commands to enable or disable ports. You can just come to the software, just few clicks here and there, select them, click on the action, disable it, you're done. The job is pretty easy. So the OpUtils is going to help you make your task in real time much easier and user friendly, and it's going to give you the informations in real time. And in terms of port view, for example, I would be able to see a visual representation of the ports and the port view of my switch. As you can see, this is a 41 port switch, and I'll be able to see which ports are being used which by which particular device in a much clear fashion. So if I hold my mouse on one particular port, it's going to give me the information about what's the port number, the basic information, the connected MAC or the IP addresses. If there are multiple devices connected to a single port, it's going to give me multiple MAC and IP addresses. And likewise, if a port is free, it's going to give me that it's down, nothing is connected. That's the port number of it. And if I click on that particular port in that switch, it's going to give me the detailed information about this particular switch or this particular port with all the details which is required to analyze the information about what I'm searching in a much clearer fashion. And the port history tab is going to give me much more details about how things have been happening with this particular switches or the devices which I'm managing. So let me show it with another example which will help us understand what are the various informations which are available in terms of Switchboard Mapper and the port history. So under the port history, you would be able to get the more information about the ports, for example, when what has happened at what particular time. And the alert tab is going to give you the information about what went wrong at what particular time, or what notification was done, or what changes happened, which got notified. Every detailed statistics which was monitored and alerted, it will be showed, and we can view them in a much clearer fashion. And when we talk about the scan schedules which are available within SPM, it is as straightforward as we had in IP address manager. So here you can select your respective switches and have various scan schedules. You can have them to run daily, hourly, or once, and get real-time information. And one more important information which you have to understand is that the OpUtils SPM is going to show you the data based on the scans that are going to happen. So as soon as the scan happens, it's going to update the information and show you the details in real time. To get more information about your network with all the detailed information, you can add your core router, your Active Directory as well, so that with the switch, the subnet, the core router, and the Active Directory, we would be able to get the detailed information about your network, so that it will be much easier for us to notify you if something goes wrong in terms of rogue deduction. We would be seeing in detail about rogue deduction in the following slides. So now let's go back to the presentation and continue. So the next topic which we are going to see is about rogue deduction. So rogue deduction becomes a big security concern, or a security important feature, or a business critical feature which is needed by all of us in real time scenarios. So any device which comes into our environment has to be monitored, and we should be notified if something goes wrong. If a brand new device, just not a legitimate device, comes into our environment, I need to know where it's connected, how it's connected, why it's connected. If it's a non-legitimate device, or if it's a rogue one which should not be there in an environment, I should just kick them out, so that I will not have any security breaches within my environment. So OpUtils is going to help you achieve that. So as we have discussed, as soon as you have your subnets switches along with your core router and your Active Directory, the product is going to scan your environment in a real time, and it's going to have the complete information about the trusted devices and the rogue devices. So we know when we scan our Dhcp server and Active Directory with the switches and subnets, we know which are the trusted devices, automatically. So by this information, we would clearly give you the indication that come on, you do have 5,000 IPs in your environment, and out of that, 4,450 are trusted based on the information from your router, Active Directory, and DHCP server. And then there are 50 rogue devices which we have no information on them. Now I'm giving you this information. You can take necessary actions and move forward. So rogue detection feature is going to give you these kind of information, which is pretty business critical in terms of security in our environment. So now let's see what are the various options and features which are available under rogue deduction in OpUtils. You can detect unauthorized access to your network resources and protect your network from any intrusions. You'll be able to get a, a pictorial representation about the discovered IPs, trusted IPs, rogue and guest devices as well. So now let's see the features which are available under rogue detection. You can detect unauthorized access of network resources. You can authorize a brand new device to your network, like any guest devices which are going to be there in your environment for the next couple of days. Or you can mark the device status as per your requirement as a guest or available or a trusted device. You can block or prevent rogue devices once it's detected. You can just kick them out of your network and have a safer environment. You can identify if there are any ARP snooping which is happening, and also you can import devices based on network discovery, Active Directory, and CSV file as well. And you can do a periodic scan to monitor your network health anytime. So now let me take you to the product and show you how the rogue detection work in terms of real time. So as you can see, I do have 550 IPs on an overall fashion. I'll show you another setup which has a much larger range of IPs and devices I've already discovered. So over here, as you can see, in this particular setup, I do have 6,000 IPs which I have discovered, and out of which 2,000 are trusted and 550 are rogue and 1,000 are in a guest state. So in this information, as you can see, I'll be able to get various filters based on the NICs in which it's connected and also the type of the devices. So for example, if I want to see all my rogue devices, all I have to do is click on the filter for rogue, and I can see to which NIC it's been connected and the MAC address and the IP and the DNS based on the information which I'm getting from the scan which I'm doing regularly. And in case if I want to change any status of a particular IP addresses, it's pretty simple. All I have to do is I have to just select the respective IPs or devices and then choose an action, whether I want to trust it or I want to mark it as a guest or I want to block it. For example, I do have a device which is coming in my environment, and it's going to be a guest device for the next 1 week or 2 weeks. He is an health inspector or a brand new guest who comes in my environment. I'm assigning him an IP so that he could access our network and have RDP connections and everything. So he's going to be there in my office for the next 2 weeks. So in those terms, I can mark those devices as a guest device pretty easily. All I have to do is I have to select the device and click on mark guest. I can give valid till how long this device can be a guest device. For example, if it's going to be for 1 week or 2 weeks, all I have to do is I have to just give a timeline for that, and then once you've selected, give a description and then click on save. So once you've clicked on save, that device will be in a guest state. And likewise, if I want to delete any device or block a particular device from my environment, I can very well do it. I can mark it as a rogue device, or I can even swap it to a trusted state if it's really needed. And with this information, you can also export this data in a CSV format or a PDF format so that you could have it for your internal reference. And likewise, for example, if you have a CSV file in which you have all your MAC details, you can also import that to the product and make the devices as trusted as well. So the main reason why we recommend in adding your DHCP and Active Directory to the product is that so that once you have that discovered, we will know in real time what is your actual trusted devices in your environment, and we would be able to give you a better rogue detection of all the unknown or untrusted devices which are there in your environment. So once it comes in, once the rogue is detected, you can take necessary actions and get notified accordingly. So now let's go back to the presentation and continue. The next topic which we are going to see is about networking tools. We do have 4 networking tools which are available, starting with bandwidth monitor, which is going to give you the detailed information about the bandwidth usage of your devices and interfaces. Config file manager, which helps you back up your Cisco network devices. And then your network monitor, which is going to monitor the availability of the devices which are there in your environment. So now let's see in detail about each network monitoring tool one by one, so that we'll have a better understanding. And also, please do raise questions if you have them in the chat channel, so that our specialists can answer them. So starting with the first network tool, bandwidth monitor. So the bandwidth monitor is going to monitor your traffic utilization over an interface in real time and give you vital information. You can also configure threshold for maximum utilization, and you can also get the utilization graph with in and out traffic. So now let me quickly take you to the product and show you the various network monitoring tools which are available, starting with the bandwidth monitor. So when we talk about bandwidth monitor, you can add your interfaces. All you have to do, you have to enter your IP address and then choose an SNMP credential and click on get. It's going to get all the interfaces in them, and you can select the respective interfaces which you want to monitor and get the detailed statistics about them. For example, here I have added few of my network switches to the environment, and that is giving me the required information about my particular interface. As you can see in this particular interface, I could see my overall usage statistics, the in traffic, the out traffic, what is the total consumption of my bandwidth. I could see the same information in daily, monthly, or yearly manner, and also based on the thresholds which I've configured, the product is going to notify me if it exceeds a specific bandwidth usage. And also I'll be able to get different filters based on the overall speed or the bandwidth of that particular interface. If I want to see a particular device which has a 10 Mbps interface, I could see them in a much clearer fashion. If I want to see a specific interface in that switch, I can do it. And likewise, I can export these informations in a PDF or an Excel sheet so that I can have it for my internal reference. So now let's go back to the presentation and continue with the next network monitor tool. So the next tool which we are going to see is about config file manager. So as we have discussed, the config file manager helps you take or collect running or startup configuration backups for your Cisco devices. You can maintain and compare the configuration backups, and you can have them in a real-time scenario. So let me show it in a product on how this works. So for here, to add any network device, all you need is your credential. You can give the IP address and the respective SNMP credential. You can also import the device on bulk using a CSV file. So once you've discovered the switch to the network tool called as config file manager, we will be taking the backups for the startup and running configurations, and we could view what is the configuration which is actually happening. For example, over here, I could see that I do have a comparison part where I'm selecting the IP address 10 192.168.50.140 for the startup configuration. I'm choosing another device and comparing the startup configuration which I've taken in a different time. And I want to see what is the actual comparison between these two switches and the configuration which is happening between them. So once I have done that, I'll be able to get the information as I'm seeing on the screen of what are the modified information, what is common, or what is the difference between them. So with this information, I know what is the startup configuration difference between these two devices, so that I could take necessary actions, or I could revert the respective changes so that I'll have a much secured and a common baseline for my switches or my configurations which are there in my Cisco devices. And likewise, in case of if you want to scan them, you can do it immediately. You can edit them and put a custom description or change the credentials. And this helps you take running and backup configurations of your Cisco devices and keep it safe for future references. And you can also compare them to have a better information about your network device and the configuration which has been happening in your environment. So moving back to the presentation, the next network monitoring tool which we are going to see is about network monitor. So the network monitor is going to monitor the availability in real time of the added or discovered devices. You can set thresholds for the response time and missed polls as well. So let me show you in the product to see how it actually works. When we go to the network monitor under networking tools, you can see that I've added few devices, and here I can add my device individually or import them on bulk using a CSV file. As soon as I discover my device into the networking tool, I'll be able to see the health statistics, whether how long it's been active, whether if it's down or how many polls have been missed. And likewise, I could get all the other information about all my devices which I have been added and I am monitoring it. And I could also change the polling interval. How often should I be checking the polling interval, or how often should I be seeing whether the device is up or down. So in these scenarios, I could have a time starting from 20 seconds to 60 minutes, and I could check the availability of the devices on bulk as well. And here I can add as many devices as I want, and I could start and stop monitoring the devices availability in real time as per my wish, and I could also have a custom timeline to monitor them. So the next networking tool which we are going to see is about Wake on LAN. So OpUtils Wake on LAN solution gives an easy to use WOL technology in your network. It supports both manual and scheduled wake-ups, the ability to scan the system across various VLANs and give you a vital information about your LAN and your VLAN which is there, and have a better wake on capacity so that you don't need to do it manually, and the product helps you understand and automate these processes in a much easier fashion. So the next topic which we're going to see is about the tool sets. OpUtils has more than 20 plus networking utility tools which helps you troubleshoot your day-to-day network problems in a much easier way, and it's pretty user friendly as well, and it saves time in analyzing the network issues in a much easier fashion. So now let me show it in the product the various networking tools which are available within the product, which helps you understand the free tools which are available. So as you can see, we do have 20 plus free tools which are available, starting from ping tool. You can ping a device and see what's happening. You can have, you also have your WMI query tool where you can enter your device credential and the WMI query and see the response for them. You have your CLI query. You also have the address monitor where you can see if the MAC address is resolving properly or not. You can see the DHCP scope monitor. You can get the IP to MAC relation by adding your core router to the free tool. You also have network tools where in terms of Cisco and network devices, you can see how the scan is happening, what is the system explorer. You can also update the system details such as sysname or syslocation or system contact details in a much easier fashion. You also have the MIB browser, which is nothing but an SNMP testing tool, which helps you understand the SNMP response from the devices in a much easier way. You also have other SNMP tools starting from SNMP graph. You can have your SNMP walk tool, MIB browsers, community checker, traffic receiver. And with these SNMP tools, a network administrator's job of analyzing their network to see if a proper SNMP response or a response from a device is happening becomes much easier and user friendly, instead of having multiple tools on the same environment to do small tasks. So OpUtils is going to give you these 20 plus tools free of cost, and it's going to help you understand your networks in a much easier way and use them to the fullest. And also in terms of Cisco devices, you can scan your Cisco routers and get more details. You can have your system explorer, which is going to give you the detailed statistic of what's happening in your particular network device and how the configuration is there in real time as soon as you click on show. So now let's go back to the presentation and continue. The next topic which we are going to see is about the scan schedules. You can update the IP address and switchboard status automatically. The periodic checks of your network and detect the rogue devices. You can scan your routers for IP to MAC relations. You can scan at user convenience, and we also have various notification options starting from the predefined alerts based on various scenarios. Just you can enable them or disable them by just one or two clicks here and there. You have SMS, sorry, email and syslog based alerting. You can set custom threshold for the alerting. You can get rogue detection and its related notifications in a much easier way. So here, when we talk about the scheduling and the notifications, it's pretty simple and straightforward. So when we talk about scheduling based on various information which we monitor, starting from IP addresses or switchboards, we can have different schedules for each parameter and scan them regularly so that we will have a real-time information about our network and our environment in a much easier way. And in terms of notification, as we have seen, we do have predefined criteria where all you have to do is just enable a toggle on and off button, which is going to send you the notifications immediately. If you want to change the criteria or the threshold, you just have to click on the percentage sign and put a brand new value there. The same goes for switchboard mapper, rope detection, network monitor, or bandwidth monitor, or if it's going to be a DHCP based monitor, you can get alerts accordingly. So this is how, but just few clicks, just enable a toggle button, you're going to get a notification for, you're going to get a notification when something goes wrong. So as simple as it's possible. So now let's go back to the presentation and continue. The next topic which we're going to see is about reports. So any network monitoring tool, the reporting capability of that software or the product is going to decide everything in terms of real time. Here we do have predefined wide range of reports for each module which are available, detailed information about the collected data, easy options to schedule them. You can completely customize the schedules and take the reports accordingly. So now let me take you to the product and show you the various reports which are available within OpUtils. So as you can see, based on IP address manager, switchboard mapper, we do have various different predefined uh, reports which are available. Starting from the IP usage is going to give me the complete information, and in terms of switchboard mapper, I could see the switch usage statistics and the port operation status, or the connected IP details. I get all these informations in a report manner, which helps me understand it much easier. I could export them immediately, or if I want to schedule them and get them in a proper uh, schedule or an email, I could very well do it. And also the audit report is going to give you all the information about every change that is happening within the software. If someone makes a change within the software, you want to know which user or which particular technician has done that, you can come to the audit report and see all the information in a much clear and a detailed fashion. Going back to the presentation, OpUtils has introduced a brand new mobile app which is available now. So all you have to do is you can download the app, synchronize it with your OpUtils setup, and then you can get all the notification and view the detailed informations in your phone directly. And this is supported both on Android and iOS platforms. You can get more details about the app by clicking on the link which is given at the bottom of the presentation slide. What do we get? The summary of our webinar. So what do we get out of OpUtils? The first and foremost important thing is a goodbye to the huge and intensive spreadsheets and intense efforts which we have been doing without the usage of OpUtils in our environment. Starting with the following advantages which OpUtils is going to give us: a better real-time IP management, manage your ports in real time, protect your network from intrusion, schedule the scan to help us have and save manual efforts. You can monitor your bandwidth, availability, and maintain your backups. You can have instant notifications to through email or syslogs. You can get the reports for audit and historic references and everything. So now we are going to enter the question and answer session of the webinar, starting with the first question. This OpUtils provide a report that combines both IP address and Switchboard Mapper data. Yes, we do have a report, and this report is called as the connected IP details. So the connected IP details report is going to combine both the IPAM and the SPM data and show it in a single sheet so that it will be easier for us to get the data and view them accordingly. Moving on to the next question. The supported DHCP servers. So as we have seen, the OpUtils supports various DHCP servers in our environment, as we have seen starting from the Microsoft, the Palo Alto firewall, and various other devices, sorry, the DHCP servers which are available. So let me show you the supported DHCP servers. As you can see, we support the Microsoft DHCP server, the Palo Alto firewall, the Linux-based DHCP servers, Cisco routers, and Fortinet firewall as well. So these are the various DHCP servers which are supported within OpUtils. Moving on to the next question. Where can I add my DNS server in OpUtils? So let me take you to the product and show you where you can add your DNS server to the product. To add your DNS server to the product, so all you have to do is you have to go to OpUtils, settings, and then under settings, you would be able to see the IP address manager. So under IP address manager, you have an option where you can enter your DNS server. So all you have to do is if you have multiple DNS servers, just enter the IP address of the host name, set it separated by commas. For example, I have my DNS server which is running in this particular IP address. All you have to do is just enter my IP address and click on save. As simple as that. Moving on to the next question. How to retrieve the MAC address connected to an IP information. Then this is collected from the switches and routers, and this information is shown based on the ARC table entry of the switch and the router which is there in your environment, which you've discovered and monitoring it. Moving on to the next question. Where will my config backups stored within the server, and can I change the location? Yes, you can change the location of the backup files, and the backup file will be stored within the OpUtils home directory under the folder called as config backup. Moving on to the next question. What is the polling interval for network devices? The polling interval for network devices, as we have seen for the network devices, it varies from 20 seconds to 60 minutes, and you can also customize them based on your requirement and real-time usage as well. Moving on to the next question. Does OpUtil push configuration changes by such as blocking ports in my switches? Yes, you can do it. And as we have seen in our switches using the SNMP credentials right axis, we will be pushing these changes to the network devices such as switch or routers pretty easily using SPM. Moving on to the next question. Can we set threshold for port utilization percentage in my switch? Yes, you can do that. Let me show you in the product and how this can be achieved. For this, you have to go to settings, Switchboard Mapper, and under Switchboard Mapper, you have to go to configure alerts. Under configure alerts, you can put a custom threshold for the port utilization if it's below or above a certain percentage, and save it. Moving on to the next question. How is OpUtils licensed? Does it have a separate license for bandwidth monitor and config file manager? OpUtils is licensed based on number of IPs and ports which you want to manage. So in IPAM, the total number of IPs which you want to manage is licensed based on IP addresses, and in Switchboard Mapper, it's based on number of ports which you want to monitor. And bandwidth monitor and config file manager is not licensed. It is a free tool which is available within the OpUtils standalone edition. We would be uploading all our technical videos in our YouTube channel. You can visit the help document, which is help.opmanager.com. We would be having our technical discussion in our forum post, and in case if you want to get in touch with our team, you could directly drop an email or call us directly and also get in touch with us. And we have introduced a latest chat feature within the product. So within the product, you could directly click on chat and get in touch with us pretty easily and in a real-time fashion. I thank one and all for attending this webinar. Looking forward to see you in the next season of OpUtils training webinar. Thank you.